This place sat at the centre of a medieval royal scandal, one that would help bring down a queen. Dating back to the 1460s, it stands today as one of the best preserved windows into medieval England. It hosted kings and queens in its great hall, houses one of the best preserved medieval kitchens in the UK, and its walls are covered in superstitious markings that reveal how people once feared the world around them. Today, we explore Gainsborough Old Hall in Lincolnshire. Miraculously, most of the hall that we see today is the original building from the late 1400s. Construction began in the 1460s, following Sir Thomas Burgh's newfound power as an appointed member of the Privy Council to King Edward IV. And as such, Sir Thomas rapidly became influential in Lincolnshire. Gainsborough Old Hall, with its magnificent medieval lodging range, great hall and private quarters, are a show of his sudden power in the region. Following the death of Edward IV, Sir Thomas was courted by Richard III, yes, the king who was found in the car park in 2012. However, Sir Thomas was particularly savvy when it came to political chess, switching his allegiance to Henry Tudor before the Battle of Bosworth, ultimately ensuring his family's survival and the hall that we see today. Without a doubt, the most impressive part of Gainsborough Old Hall is the Great Hall itself. The sheer size of this place can only truly be felt in person, but either way, it's obvious that the hall was designed to make a statement. This masterpiece demonstrates the skills of the carpenters at the time through the typically Tudor wattle door walls and enormous oak trusses that would have been made from an entire oak tree. Warming a room this large was also a challenge. The Tudor solution was to have what was known as an open hearth, or a slightly raised fire burning in the centre of the hall's floor. As you would expect, this would produce a lot of smoke, which is why the roof was fitted with a louver, a slatted turret that sat centrally on the hall's roof, allowing smoke to be drawn outside and away from the court. The original louver still survives to this day, although it was removed in the 1950s for conservation. These modern replica tapestries give us a sense of how the hall may have been decorated. At this end of the room, the Lord would have sat, with his courtiers filling up many of the other tables in the room. It's easy to see how this place would have been seen as fit for a king, which is precisely why we have records of at least two well-known royal visits to Gainsborough Old Hall. The original owner, Sir Thomas Burgh II, hosted King Richard III here in October 1483. The visit must have gone exceptionally well, because shortly after, Sir Thomas was appointed the Knight of the Garter, the highest chivalric rank going. Looking slightly out of place, there is a stone bay window at one end of the hall's north wall. Used as a way of creating more light and showing further wealth, it's strongly believed that the stonework was brought here from a nearby abbey following the dissolution of the monasteries in the 1530s under the reign of Henry VIII. Leading on from the Great Hall, which is just over my shoulder, we enter the medieval kitchen, and this is said to be the best surviving medieval kitchen in the country. And just looking at this room, you can truly believe that claim, because this place is absolutely incredible. So in this room, we've got a mixture of different things going on. So we've got two absolutely massive fireplaces. We've got this one, and then another one directly opposite over there. And they would have been used for different purposes. So, for example, in this particular one here, we do have a bit of metalwork there for pots and pans to hang off. So they would have lit the fire, let that rage, and then the pans and stuff were kind of sat over that fire and ultimately heated up boiled water, etc. And then over in this one, we've got the metal spit, where things such as hogs would have been roasted and cooked over the open fire. And just directly above, if you can see, we got something similar to what would have been in the Great Hall, which is known as the Louvre, or Louvre, which is essentially like a little turret where the smoke would have gone up and escaped. Just over in the corner of the room, we got this small room, and this is basically the area where they would have salted the meat. So obviously back in medieval times, they didn't have refrigerators and packaging. So they would have used this room to rub salt onto the likes of pigs and allow them to preserve using the salt or cure. Moving over to the left of the kitchen, we've got another room, and this has got a slightly different purpose. So this is the pastry room, and this is where the pastry for all the various pies would have been made. So obviously a modern recreation of some shelves We've got what looks to be an actual surviving table. This looks a bit old, well worn. And essentially they would have been making the pastry in here and utilising the ovens within the kitchen to cook their pies, of which we've got 2 surviving examples here. So we've got one there and then another one just there as well. So the pies would have been placed on these bits of wood, shoved into the oven, similar to like a modern day pizza oven, where the temperatures would have varied throughout the cavity and allowed them to control the cooking much the same way that we would do with a modern cooker. The main area within the kitchen here, we've got the main preparation floor. So we've got the tables where food would have been prepared, vegetables chopped up, meat chopped up. And then we got the serving hatch. So this area here is the surviving serving hatch for the food. Once the food would have been prepared in the kitchen, you can imagine during royal visits such as that of Henry VIII with his wife, Catherine Howard, the food would have been flying out of this place in bowls such as this, passed across to the servant, who would then obviously make their way back down this corridor straight into the Great Hall where the festivities were happening. So we're currently in the steward's chamber, which is just above the kitchen, and I believe this was built again in the 1480s when the kitchen was rebuilt. So originally the kitchen would have been a standalone part of the structure, and then they kind of bolted it onto the main manor house. The steward is basically the head of the household, looking after the general running of the place, so kind of making sure the kitchen was run smoothly and all of the various tasks that needed to happen in the house were completed. So the steward's chamber, again, as with the rest of the hall, is timber framed with the wattle and daub infill. So in here we've got another large fireplace, which is no surprise given the size of the room, and then just over here, big great window overlooking what once would have probably just been countryside. So we're now going to make our way up into the lodging space. So this is taking us past the wattle and daub structure there, up this staircase. Let's go and have a look. As we make our way up into the lodging range, I just want to say I hope you've been enjoying the video so far. So please do consider giving me a like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel grow, and make sure you don't miss any future videos like this. We now enter the west, or the lodging range, which is a 3-storey timber frame building that was built back in the 1470s. It consists of 12 near identical rooms, each with their own fireplace, their own latrine and a west facing window to allow the guests to overlook over onto the courtyard down below. It is worth noting that today you can only visit the first floor, as the floorboards to the upper 2 floors are no longer there. However, you can look upwards and see the remains of the old rooms above your head. As we quite know, within like the 14th, 15th and even into the 16th and 17th centuries, people were very, very superstitious about witchcraft and evil spirits. And in this room alone, just as you enter, you can look around on the walls and see the burn marks. These are purposeful burns on the wood to ward off witchcraft, kind of known as taper burns or witch marks, all over them on the wall there as well. So on pretty much every timber we've got the burn marks, and even in this room we've got even more. It does make you wonder how these places didn't actually burn down, given the amount of burning that they were doing on the wood. So we're now in the gallery, which is on the first floor, and this overlooks the Great Hall. So although we've got a small hatch here today, this whole thing opens up and allows you to kind of lean on this and look down on the festivities down below. So not only would the Great Hall be used as a place to eat food, it'd also be a place for entertainment. So various different parts of the court, such as jesters, singing, dancing, music, you name it, would happen down in the Great Hall. It was a show of wealth and also a place for medieval entertainment. In here as well, we've got examples of games from the day, age-old clubs and balls. Let's see if I can do it. This is a really hard one. It's not even a good hand. 9 men's Morris, which is some kind of peg game. I'm assuming you have to kind of leap over and capture the pieces. And I think we all know this one. Chess. A remarkable story often missed is the connection between Henry VIII and Gainsborough Old Hall, or rather 2 of his wives. Catherine Parr, Henry's last wife, was in fact first married to a member of the Burgh family and lived in this very hall during the first year of her marriage. However, it is another Catherine that has more interesting ties to this building. In the year 1541, Henry VIII and his new wife Catherine Howard set out on their royal progress to the north of England. Upon their return journey from York, it is known that Henry, Catherine and their court stayed at the hall for 3 days, lodging in the more prestigious Eastern Range. It was here at Gainsborough Old Hall that Catherine Howard was supposedly seen to act indiscreetly towards one of the king's most trusted men, Thomas Culpeper. It was both her behaviours at Gainsborough and another stop in Lincoln that set fire to a royal scandal that would ultimately result in a death sentence for the teenage queen. Hopefully you enjoyed our visit to Gainsborough Old Hall today. Please do consider giving me a like and subscribe, it really helps the channel, and why not take a look at one of the other videos that YouTube is recommending on the screen right now. Until next time, take care.